Jona, thank you so much for joining me once again. So the collection book UI is something that creators have found very useful. We've been playing about with a bit this week, and it's something that collectors have been asking for quite some time now. So do you want to share a bit of info about that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm not sure when we first added it, but it was probably last year already. So it's been quite a while where we first added like a collection book where users could essentially just see for a certain collection, for a given collection, which NFTs they had, which were still missing. Then we like sorted it by perhaps the rarity or something so that you can see like you maybe have a full common collection, but you're still missing these three NFTs for the uncommon and so on. And initially, this was just meant as a special thing that we added manually for a few of the big collections, like for Blockchain Heroes and for Cox in the beginning. But then over time, we got more and more collections, and there was more and more to add, and all of this was done manually by us still. And we knew that like this didn't really work going forward. We couldn't just be adding these collection books manually for dozens of collections all the time. But at the same time, we also didn't want to exclude any collection from that because we know it's a useful feature. And that's when we started redesigning the system to be really like configurable by the creators themselves, where we initially published like a first beta version where you had to edit the JSON data that was underlying all of this, which was pretty technical. But already to give some collections the ability to do so if they figured it out. And now we have the next iteration of that online where we have some rather simple UI. Like it's not perfectly designed, but it gets the job done quite well, where collections can just open this collection book creator and then just define for themselves how should their collection look in this collection book? Like what should the rarities be that they're sorted by, or perhaps it's not a rarity, but it's some other attribute, and you can really just define that yourself so that then the users or the collectors of any given collection can use this feature.
Sure thing. And I mean, as you said, it's something that collectors have been asking for quite a long time now, and it should really help those people who are maybe missing one or two NFTs and really want to get that core set from whatever project they're following. It will really help them out in that sense. So other than the collection book UI, what have we been working on this week?
Yeah, so a few things. One thing that we actually already released was better handling for one-of-one NFTs. So basically, our like all of AtomicHub was very much centered around templates being like this grouping factor between NFTs. But that like works well for collectible projects, or it works well for game projects, but it perhaps doesn't really work well for these generative art projects where you maybe have 10,000 NFTs and all of them are unique. So that really is a change that probably you can miss quite easily, but I think that is quite relevant for these particular projects where now you can search them on the marketplace properly. We display a floor price for these. So like for the suggested price of any given NFT, if it doesn't belong to a template, we now use some logic that is more applicable to these sorts of projects. Also for the price history, for example, where usually we would just display the price history of a given template. If there is no template, then we can now display the price history of all these NFTs, all these unique NFTs together, which I think really adds value to these few projects. We've been working on the NFT Creator a lot, to the point where we actually have sort of a closed beta right now, where some people are already testing it. There's still some improvements to be made, that's for sure, but it's already a big step up, especially from like the technical side, like the code base below it, which before that was a real mess, and now is sort of straightened up again, and now it's at a stage where we can add new features or iterate on it a lot easier than we could before. So I'm hoping that we can get this released to the public in the next few weeks. That there's still a few improvements to be made, as I said, but I think we're on a very good track there. And then not really on the developer side, but just on the design side, we're don't want to get into that too much, but we're working on some pretty interesting, some pretty cool new designs, which I'm actually very excited for. Like when we do release them, I'm sure everyone will notice it, and I'm very hopeful that people will like it.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. They've been looking fantastic so far. So yeah, I'm confident that they'll be well received. Let's say. So let's take a couple of questions from the Discord. So Ted Salis asks whether there will ever be an AtomicHub phone app.
I hope so, but it's a bit difficult. So the reason why it's difficult is that on Apple devices, the App Store, and on Android devices, just the Google Play Store, they have some of their own restrictions, and they're not super friendly towards crypto apps. So if we build an app, it would be quite likely that it actually doesn't have the full functionality, but would be more like a sort of showcase and explorer app, but not really there for trading in and of itself. And that's why it's also a bit lower priority, because just because of these rules that the app stores enforce, we won't be able to offer the full functionality. At least likely we won't. Maybe that could also change. But for now, we probably couldn't. So that's why it's not a super high priority. But I think in the long-term vision of AtomicHub, having an app, like a mobile app, is just a no-brainer, sort of. So I think it's going to come eventually. We will see if it's going to be like fully fleshed out with all the features, or if we have to cut some of those. But regardless, I think when it does come, it will add some value.
Oh, fantastic. And Right Forge in Discord also asked whether we will support various game tokens. So for purchasing and interacting on AtomicHub. So, you've got TLM from Alien World, you've got Farmers Token, Ether from Mark Planet, etc. Are we planning any support for those on AtomicHub?
Yeah, so there's two parts of this question. First of all, the technical side, like, could we even do this? And the answer to that is yes, we could. It's not quite as easy as flipping a switch or pressing a button, of course, but it's like, in general, our systems have been designed to deal with that. It's also a UX challenge then, like how can we present this in a way that makes sense? Really, the main reason why we haven't done so in the past, or we haven't done so far, is that we want to make sure that we're not splitting marketplaces into like separate groups, sort of. We don't want to split liquidity across multiple different marketplaces if it doesn't really make sense. So it's like we're not ruling it out if there's ever like this really big project and they have this token where it just makes sense and it's very like highly requested to add this as a token for the marketplace. Then we're not ruling it out. I think for now it actually is healthier for the ecosystem if we keep it all if we keep all the activity just on this Wax marketplace, where users don't have to understand like what is TLM, what is Ether, what is whatever. They just need to understand what is Wax, and then they can still understand what these tokens for the projects are. Of course, if they want to get into that, but we don't sort of shove it down their throat if they don't really care about it so far. So it's really a balance between wanting to support these projects, wanting to give users an ability to trade with the tokens that they want to trade with, but also wanting to not split the ecosystem up too much and wanting to keep it easy for new users.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I think we've got some very interesting few weeks up ahead. So Jona, thank you so much for sharing that with me, and I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, sounds good.